The Light Within, A Journey Through Darkness. The wind howled through the narrow canyon as Sarah sat on a cold rock, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She felt as if the world had swallowed her whole. The once bright flame of hope in her heart had dimmed, flickering weakly under the weight of despair. Life had become an unending series of trials, and Sarah could no longer imagine a way out. She whispered into the darkness, "Is there even a light at the end of this tunnel?" Sarah had lost her job 6 months ago. Her bills piled up, her relationships strained under the weight of her frustrations, and her once vivid dreams now felt like distant memories. Every day was a battle to get out of bed, to move forward, to believe in something better. One evening, as the shadows lengthened and the night settled over her small apartment, Sarah received an unexpected call. It was her grandmother, wise and warm as always. "Sarah," her grandmother said, her voice calm yet firm, "I want you to go on a little journey." "A journey?" Sarah asked, puzzled. "I can barely afford groceries, let alone a trip." "This journey costs nothing but your time and your trust," her grandmother replied. "Meet me tomorrow at the old oak tree on Sunset Hill. You'll understand when you get there." Curiosity outweighed Sarah's doubt, and the next morning, she trudged up the hill to the massive oak tree that had stood as a silent witness to her childhood adventures. Her grandmother was waiting, holding a worn leather journal and a small lantern. "This is for you," her grandmother said, handing over the journal. "It's a guide of sorts. It belonged to someone who walked through a similar darkness and found their way to the light. Now it's your turn to find your path." Sarah opened the journal carefully. Inside were pages filled with stories, reflections, and sketches. The first page read, "When you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, remember, you carry the light within." The words struck something deep within Sarah. She looked up at her grandmother, who smiled and handed her the lantern. "This is symbolic," her grandmother explained. "Even in the deepest night, this little flame can guide you. You might not see the whole path, but you only need enough light for the next step." Intrigued but uncertain, Sarah decided to follow the journal's guidance. Each day, she dedicated herself to one of its lessons. The first chapter encouraged her to start small, very small. "Celebrate one thing today," it said. That day, Sarah celebrated getting out of bed on time. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next day, the journal instructed her to write a letter to herself, a version of herself 10 years from now. Sarah scoffed at first. "What's the point?" she muttered. But as she put pen to paper, something surprising happened. She imagined a future where she was stronger, happier, and thriving. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of possibility. As days turned into weeks, Sarah noticed small but profound changes. The journal's lessons encouraged her to find gratitude in unlikely places, to reach out to friends she had distanced herself from, and to rediscover forgotten hobbies. She dusted off her old paint set and began creating again, her canvases filling with bold, hopeful colors. One entry in the journal hit her particularly hard. "Darkness is not the absence of light, but a space for growth. Seeds germinate in the soil before they bloom." Sarah realized that she had been too focused on what she had lost to see what she was gaining, a deeper understanding of herself, resilience, and the ability to find beauty in simplicity. The tunnel, though still daunting, no longer felt suffocating. She began to see cracks of light. One day, Sarah came across a page with just 2 words, "Help others." The simplicity of the message startled her. What could she possibly offer anyone when she was still struggling? Nevertheless, she decided to volunteer at a local shelter, serving meals to people facing even greater challenges. To her surprise, the act of giving lifted her spirits. She connected with others who shared their own stories of survival, resilience, and hope. The journal's final entry read, "The light at the end of the tunnel isn't something you find, it's something you create." With that, Sarah understood. The journal had been teaching her not just to endure the darkness, but to use it as fuel for her inner light. She had always carried the tools to rebuild her life. She just needed to believe in herself enough to use them. Months later, Sarah stood at the top of Sunset Hill, the worn journal in her hands. She felt a profound sense of peace. Life wasn't perfect, but she no longer felt trapped. She had a job she enjoyed, friends who supported her, and a newfound appreciation for her journey. Her grandmother joined her, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You've come a long way," she said. "Now, what will you do with your light?" Sarah smiled and held up the lantern her grandmother had given her that first day.
"I'll pass it on," she said.
That evening, Sarah began writing her own journal, a guide for others walking through their own tunnels of darkness. Her story became a beacon for many, reminding them that even in the darkest times, the light within is always enough to guide the way.